Okay.
Hello everyone. It's Paola. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am interviewing Jennifer, who is the author of Those Who Pray. Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what Those Who Pray is about?
I'm Jennifer Moffett, and I'm a debut author. So Those Who Pray is my first book. That's what it looks like. And it's a college set YA thriller. So it takes place on a college campus, but it definitely is strong on the mystery element. And it's about a college freshman who basically goes to college far away from home, and so she doesn't know anyone and has trouble kind of fitting in and making friends. And when she finally does meet a group of really nice students her second semester, she doesn't realize there's more to it behind the scenes because the book is about a campus cult. And so in a way, it offers a unique view of what it would be like to be lured into a cult without knowing what's happening, in the moment.
What was your favorite scene to write?
I love writing really suspenseful, kind of intense scenes. And there's one that I don't want to give too much away, but it's a scene in a swimming pool. I don't know. It's sort of like one of those scenes where you learn a lot at once about what's really going on. But it takes place in Italy, and the character is very isolated with another character, and they're having like a really intense kind of conversation when they're interrupted. So it's one of those scenes I don't want to give too much away, but it was a lot of fun to write. It just sort of wrote itself because the characters were kind of, talking to each other and revealing things.
Ooh, okay. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, then yes, I it was super stressful to read.
There's a big reveal at the end of it.
So this next section is a fill in the blanks. So whatever pops to your brain. The first book I loved was
Wuthering Heights. It was one of those things where, you're like, okay, I have to read this. And I just swept me away to this other time and place. And I also love things that have kind of a gothic vibe.
The first book I bought with my own money was
a book by Anne Rice. And I can't remember if it was The Witching Hour or one in her vampire, the interview with the vampire. But I do remember what happened is when I read it, I wanted to read everything she'd ever written. So it started a very intense Anne Rice phase for me.
My first book idea was?
It was actually this one. It was Those Who Pray. So it had been one that I had an idea about it, sort of a vague idea for a long time. And then when I studied writing, I learned how to write short fiction and short stories and poetry, and had never really thought about writing a novel or thought about it seriously. And but then when I did, I just took that idea and went with it. So it was Those Who Pray was my first book idea.
The song that reminds me the most of my book is?
I would say it's Personal Jesus by Depeche Mode. And sometimes I would kind of listen to that when I was working on scenes. It just feels like the vibe of this book, at least part of the book.
If you were a book, what section of the bookstore would you live in?
I think I would live in the miscellaneous section that no one knows where to put it. It's like I could totally fit in the teen section. I could fit in thriller or horror. I feel like I'm miscellaneous. I feel like I am hard to categorize.
So if you could co-write a book with any author, dead or alive, who would it be?
I would say Virginia Woolf, who obviously is dead, but more than anything, I would love to pick her brain. And so co-authoring a book seems like it would be a way to do that. So she's probably my favorite author. And, I think it would be really cool to have many conversations with her.
What would you say the whole theme song of Those Who Pray is? Is it still like just Personal Jesus or?
when I think about Emily and I think about the book, her journey in the book, I always think about that song. It's by the Indigo Girls. I don't know if people still listen to the Indigo Girls, but it's called Closer to Fine. And it's sort of that song. It's when you're sort of in that seeking phase of your life and you're not sure what's going on, but the goal is to kind of get closer to being okay just by moving forward. And I don't know, I think it would be that song.
I like that. That's very hopeful and very
Mhm.
like in tune with how the book moves and feels.
I think that most YA, there's that element of hope because characters are at a starting point in their lives. And so as readers, we have hope that no matter what could go wrong, that they'll keep moving forward and evolving as they grow into adulthood. I feel like we should always remember that college freshmen most of them are still teens, and they are, just figuring out kind of how to move toward adulthood.
I mean, I know your experience in your author's note. You wrote about how you grew up in a very fundamentalist
Mm-hmm.
church, and
Mm-hmm.
that one of your friends mentioned that it was a cult.
They mentioned that they thought it was a cult, and then
Oh,
when
okay.
we started talking, there was a church offshoot with a very similar name that was a cult, but the two things were different. And so I think that happens a lot in mainstream religions where another offshoot of it will sort of do its own thing. And so if they develop sort of controlling manipulative behavior, that's when it starts veering into, wait a minute, that has a cult-like tendency. And one of the ones that I researched for this book, they actually targeted college freshmen, and they did that on purpose, knowing that they might be far away from home. They're still teens for the most part, and like you said, they would be easier prey for them to sort of bring into the fold. And so one of the things I wanted to show in the book is how that can be a very fine line. You have to really look at the way groups are behaving and how they might make you feel, or how they might pressure you in a way that's not okay.
And another thing that I really loved was how grounded on mainstream religion it was.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I came up on the book tour and I was like, oh, that sounds like a really fun read. So I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'm gonna read something ridiculous like in the Runaways, Marvel's Runaways, like the Church of
Mm-hmm.
Ghibli or something, and it's aliens,
Right.
and it's gonna be easy for me to like not really
Right.
put myself in the narrative. When I started reading and it was like the Bible and stuff, I was like, oh, okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it was very easy to understand how some people twist the meaning of God's word, or
Yes.
whatever is out there to lure people in.
And one of the things that I wanted to show in Those Who Pray is that any doctrine, whether it's, the Bible, or whether it's a created doctrine like Scientology uses a very particular doctrine, it's not about the doctrine that a cult says that they use. It's about how they use it to manipulate and control and abuse. I had researched a cult that was targeting college freshmen, and I think there were almost 40 universities that banned them from their campus. And the cult said, well, oh no, we're just a Bible group. And they said, no, you're pressuring and manipulating students. They were able to ban them due to their aggressive, manipulative behavior, rather than just saying, oh, they're teaching this or that, because it was more about the behavior than what they said that they were teaching, if that makes sense.
Because it is about like the Bible and God's word, I thought it was way easier for me, and I think it will be way easier for other people to see how easily it can be twisted. And as I was reading, I remember I was like, well, yeah, like the Bible is there, but it's like a reference book. It doesn't have to be
Right.
like a textbook. And
Right.
I am here to yeah, maybe listen to God's word, but not your twisted
Right.
opinion of what God's word is.
In the book, you have, teens who are being told by other people how they have to think or how they have to behave. And not just that, but being manipulated. It's abusive behavior to treat other people that way.
It was just the kind of book that will stay with me forever. So that's why I reached out to you and I was
Oh,
like, I
thank
need to
you.
pick your brain.
Thank you. That means so much to me. I really wanted it to be that way. Writing the book, I thought a lot about how I wanted it to come across and how I wanted it to go deeper than just the average thriller. And so I'm so glad that you said that. That makes my day.
Yeah, it was just a brilliant, brilliant book. Let's talk about your upcoming projects.
Right now, I am working on my second book, and it should be out spring 2022. But the book is about a teen psychic, and her best friend from high school went away to college, and then on her first day of classes, didn't show up and just disappeared. And so the psychic, she and a journalist go, the book is basically about them trying to figure out what the connection between that and the bizarre natural phenomena that's happening in their Arkansas Ozark town. It's definitely another thriller.
Oh my goodness, that sounds so good.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for doing this with me, Jennifer.
You,
I
I
love
really
the
appreciate it. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really loved getting to pick your brain and knowing a little bit more about Those Who Pray. People at home, you should definitely go get it like right now. I will leave links to where you can buy it and so that you can add it to your Goodreads TBR, as well as Jennifer's website and social media link so that you can follow her and follow her journey into like the next psychic thriller. Thank you so much everyone for
Thank
watching,
you.
and thank you again, Jennifer, for doing this with me.
Thank you.